All right, we got Kevin Clark here, who's always the best dressed on Radio Row every single year.
I try.
He hosts a great show called This Is Football for Omaha Productions. What's it like working for the Mannings?
It's amazing because we have the smartest quarterback thinker maybe who's ever existed on staff.
Probably.
And so we can just get him on for 30 minutes at the beginning of the playoffs and hey, who's good at quarterback? And usually he has the right answers. So he's a great boss. He's super communicative. Everybody loves him. Good culture. He's as good as a media mogul as he was as a quarterback. So I'm in.
So every 2 or 3 years, whenever the Bears fire everybody and then start over, there's always Bears fans that are like, "Whoa, just hire Peyton Manning," because for the reasons you just said, he could solve the Bears quarterback problem. It seems simple.
Peyton has a great life, and running the Bears does not necessarily seem like the greatest life possible. And I think Peyton is in the running right now for elite, can play golf whenever he wants, can do the Manning cast, can host whatever he wants to do. Peyton's places, he can, if he wanted to get involved in football, he can call up his buddies, have some influence or whatever. But day to day, doing the Kevin Warren thing, I'm not sure that's replacing what he does now.
Yeah, but so the Bears I'm looking to upgrade here, Kevin. Okay. You always think outside the box. Sure. You got creative ideas. What if we put you in charge? Number one pick, is it as easy as you take Caleb, or do you do something a little more creative? What would you do?
I think the biggest problem is you already fleeced the most desperate team in football, and that was the Carolina Panthers. So what do? You can't call the Panthers again. You can't call David Tepper and say, "Hey, got any more first-round picks?" It's over. You got them all. Is there a desperate team? I think the Commanders getting to 2 hurt the leverage maybe the Bears would have if they wanted to auction off the pick. I just don't know who would go out and say, "Hey, we're going to sell the farm for this team because we want to build around it." I don't know. I would take Caleb Williams and call it a day. I think it's an easy choice. See what you can get for Justin Fields. I think Fields has done a lot to improve his game. I think he didn't get a fair shake. I didn't love the play calling. I felt like, and this is something I've shared, I think, with you guys in the past, I felt like he had a skill set that you should want to coach him. You should want to be able to figure out what he does well and accentuate it. I felt like the infrastructure there didn't really get that until it was too late. I think he's a bounce-back candidate in a huge way. I think that we might see almost like a Tua Tagovailoa thing at some point in his career, but I don't want to wait around for that. I don't want to keep getting the infrastructure right until it clicks. And as much as I love him, I would take Caleb Williams and just go from there, start a new era, see what we can get for Fields. But I think it's a pretty easy pick.
Is there a spot right now in the league that you feel like would be a good fit for Justin Fields to bring out those things you were just talking about?
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's a bunch of them. Atlanta, obviously, is a place where they've got skill guys, which is something that he could do well with. They've got a head coach in Raheem Morris, who I really like. Shanahan's system on the offensive side of the ball. That, to me, feels like natural landing spot for him. Obviously, he's got the Georgia connection. I think that'd be great. But I also think that the thing with Tua, not that they're the same player by any means, but the one thing that Mike Daniel said about Tua is that he just needed somebody who believed in him. And so it's not about, is he from Georgia? It's not about, is Kyle Pitts there? Is Bijan Robinson there? To me, it's about what offensive head coach is going to say, I believe in this guy, I can build a scheme around him. And I think that's something it's more or less unknowable at this point.
Bill Belichick doesn't have a job in the NFL right now because
owners are scared. I think that's the biggest thing, is that, and I was just on DC radio a couple of hours ago, and they were saying they were really worried. They wanted to be the Adam Peters show, who's the GM there in Washington. And I said, well, ask Bill if he's okay with it being the Adam Peters show. And if he is, he's the best coach of all time. He's not the best GM of all time. I think you sit Bill Belichick down and you say, this is the role we have, this is the job. It's not to be the GM. It's not to bring in all your buddies in scouting and Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. It's to coach these 53 guys that are going to be handed and maximize the roster. Because he still has good game plans, just that he was so bad at building the team over the past few years that he couldn't win with those guys. And the quarterback position had completely devolved, and part of that was his fault with the way he mishandled Mac Jones, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, all of these guys. It was a problem. But I'd much rather have Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel than Dan Quinn. I think that the implication around the league was that even if Belichick says now he doesn't want to be the GM, he doesn't want to, they're worried he might do a power play or something like that. I just think that's owners not being confident enough. You go out and you get Bill Belichick because he's the best coach that we've ever seen. That we know the defensive game plans are going to be good. Even if you say it's Tom Brady, read any of the stuff about Tom Brady's development. So much of it was Bill Belichick closing the door with Tom Brady and teaching him the rules of a specific defense. I mean, the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach weren't even invited to that thing. That was just Brady and Belichick talking about offensive and defensive football at a graduate level. That can only help a young quarterback. That can only help a quarterback who's not established yet. And so it ended poorly in New England, but I'm baffled as to why Pete Carroll, I mean, frankly, I'd call him Nick Saban. I mean, just make him say no. But Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick, the fact they don't have jobs shows, I think, holes in how owners think.
I agree.
Is there one hire that stood out to you as the best one?
Mike McDonald in Seattle, even though he's a defensive head coach, and I think that the trend is for offensive head coaches for a bunch of different reasons, I think he gets modern football, and I think he's going to understand. I think the best selling point for a defensive head coach is to an offensive coordinator saying, like Todd Bowles in Tampa this year with Dave Canales, where you say, you get this side of the ball. It's the most glamorous side of the ball in football. It's the most important position in sports. Is coaching is the quarterback. You have control over that. You're going to get all the credit if there's a good offensive season. Okay, that should be a huge selling point. That's why I was disappointed in the Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury thing. You want the next Dave Canales. You want the next Bobby Slowick, who was a candidate this year because of his work with C.J. Stroud. You want those guys, and Mike McDonald is going to be able to create an infrastructure where the roster is going to be good, working with John Schneider, that defense, it's going to be badass. Those schemes and those players are just almost a perfect fit. And then on the offensive side of the ball, he's going to be smart enough to have a conveyor belt of smart OCs to where it always makes sense.
So it's interesting because that's essentially what the Bears have.
Yeah.
And they tried it with Getsy. Here's Justin Fields. Make it work, and then it didn't. Now he's here in Vegas with the Raiders. Now they're going to start it over with Shane Waldron. I'm always curious because we're sometimes too close to the situation, honestly. What's your view? What's the national view of what's going on in Chicago? What's been working with this new coaching staff? What do you think about Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles, all that? How are the Bears viewed right now?
Yeah, I mean, I know how respected Poles was coming from Kansas City. That's not in question. I still believe in his ability to build a team, and you've seen some of the draft pick hits and some of the development and some of the guys who are even coming due for contracts. Everything, with the exception of the Chase Claypool thing, has generally made sense. Eberflus, I think we're still in wait-and-see mode. I saw arguments for bringing him back and not bringing him back. I understand the stability part of it, but I also think that at some point you need to prove that you can maximize the roster, maximize the quarterback, make a push for the playoffs in a real meaningful sense, or that they're going to upgrade. I think with the coaching market this year, if I was Kevin Warren, I would have made a couple of calls and just said, hey, do you want, you're never going to get a better crop of free agent coaches. I would have at least made a call to a couple of these guys and said, how would you like to be in beautiful Hallis Hall? I don't think he did that. I think that they decided to stay the course on that. The Getsy thing never made me... I never saw a game where I was like, Luke Getsy is the guy at OC. I never saw it. I wouldn't have brought him back this year, just because I just don't think it was working with Fields, which again, as I was saying, I just felt like he had a skill set to where there'd be guys who feel more excited to work with him than Luke Getsy was. In my opinion, from a play calling standpoint, it just felt like there were better fits. And so I was a little bleh on that. But this can still work. And the Caleb Williams thing, so many times we say, great quarterbacks are the deodorant of franchises. They just they get everybody hired. In 3 years we could be saying that Caleb Williams got 5 offensive coaches hired. Like Brett Favre with the Packers years ago, where it's like one god-tier quarterback changes a franchise. What franchise-changing quarterbacks do is they change franchises. We saw with Joe Burrow. The Bengals. I remember talking to people in Kansas City about this too, where I was making fun of the Chargers actually one day. As I do. And they'll be good. They're going to be good. They're going to be good. Eventually, once they get the salary.
Well, they did what everyone in Chicago wanted the Bears to do.
And I said, I was making fun of them, and I said, they spend a lot, whatever. And I said, listen, so many of the franchises who we consider top tier were exactly like that or are exactly like that. And they don't go above and beyond spending money. They don't pay. Maybe they cut corners on medical or facilities or whatever, but then one player, one coach just changes everything and either don't notice or it drags them, they get embarrassed into becoming that franchise in order to keep that person, to extend that person, whatever. I think a lot of times, if you look at Joe Burrow changed the Bengals so significantly that Zach Taylor, this looks like a stud coach, even though he certainly didn't look like that for his first, 40 games or something like that. He had some insanely bad record. We never talked about how the spending stuff, it was always a question, the lack of a facility, the lack of, until very recently, even plans for an indoor facility. That never gets brought up anymore. That's all anybody in Cincinnati talked about for years, was how much Mike Brown didn't want to invest in all this stuff. Joe Burrow changed everything. And so all it takes for Caleb Williams to hit, and all of these questions about the Bears go away. Now you get into different questions. I mean, we saw that with Justin Herbert. You hit on a quarterback, and that's, are you doing the right things with them? But that's a separate conversation. Franchise changers change franchises, and if Caleb Williams is what we think he is, a lot of these questions will be answered very clearly in very short order.
If you could draft right now for the future, your top 4 quarterbacks in the game, who are you taking?
Oh my God, Mahomes number 1.
Right.
I would still pick Burrow too. Healthy Burrow.
Got it. So you're rolling the dice on the health if you're going there.
Yeah.
You gonna do it?
Sure.
Okay.
This is no order.
Okay.
But Mahomes definitely number 1. The Mahomes part is in order.
Yeah.
Lamar is still. I just love his. I mean, he's the MVP. He's the literal MVP. Jeez, I'm just trying to think of. I don't want to leave anybody out. I'm not going to put Herbert in there. Not going to do it. Not going to put
Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm not going to put Dak in there. I'll go Josh Allen for. If I'm building a franchise tomorrow, those are the 4.
Okay. I feel like Jordan Love is getting in the top 10 right now. That freaking guy is
all right.
the shit out of me.
I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I love Jordan Love. The one, if he's overrated with one group of fans, it's Bears fans. Because they're so scared.
We are. We are. It's
100%.
true.
They spent all of December saying, "Oh no, it's happening again."
They could have been in the championship game.
I wrote that column.
I
for sure.
completely agree.
Yeah.
But there's just so much scar tissue where they're just like, no, this can't happen. He's top 10, almost out of anger. I think he's on track to do that, but I still think you're only looking at the second half of the season. Also, by the way, so much of this is Matt freaking LaFleur. I wrote a story about Matt LaFleur 2 years ago. I said he was, he understood that locker room. He's player-led. He's got the schemes. People really impressed at the time with, like, Mike McDaniel and McVay and those guys were really impressed with his ability to win over Aaron Rodgers by taking the Shanahan-McVay scheme and mixing it with the Aaron Rodgers scheme, which is heavily borrowed from Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, people forget it was like friction at the beginning, and then they figured it all out.
And they let him audible a little bit more, which is not something that the Shanahan system allows for a lot of. They let him keep a lot of the McCarthy plays, spread the ball out, spread the formation out, use his cadence, all that stuff. So they changed the offense. So I knew he was a really good coach, and when I wrote that piece, I had a lot of Bears fans and Vikings fans saying, "Hey man, as soon as Rodgers leaves town, LaFleur is going to be exposed." And no, he's a good coach who developed a quarterback to allow them to. There's a reason they got rid of Rodgers when they did. Like, if they had done it a year early, Love wouldn't have been ready. And he played that game against Kansas City. It was fine. It was 2 years ago. It was fine. He couldn't handle some of the pressures. They couldn't get him ready in time. But they timed this perfectly. Where they get rid of Rodgers, get a little bit of draft capital for him, and Love was ready to go. But I don't think that's about drafting Jordan Love. It's about developing Jordan Love.
That's super interesting because a lot of people thought they waited too long. Could have done this a while ago. But you're saying it was perfect timing.
Yeah, I don't think knowing reading the tea leaves and talking to people, I don't know how great it would have been if Jordan Love would have thrown into the fire 2 years ago.
So, one of his newest dominant ventures is being on Around the Horn, and I think your early record is like ridiculous or something.
I'm the winningest panelist in history, 40%. But I also don't know whose record I'm like. It's just that's the one thing. It's like it's like EPA per play. Whenever I see it, I'm just like, I don't know what's good, what's not. Yeah. They keep records.
There might not be a greater accomplishment than that. Seriously.
I agree.
I mean that's right there.
So in Chicago, we're big fans of Courtney Cronin, and she's tough. She seems like she's a tough cookie.
Now let me tell you something that I couldn't do. Okay. So Courtney Cronin last year wins Rookie of the Year and Panelist of the Year. This is 2022. In the same year, she was Ichiro. She Ichiro'd it. Rookie of the Year and Panelist of the Year in the same year. Never happened before. This year, I won Rookie of the Year. Did not win Panelist of the Year. I finished second.
Cronin.
I'll finish second.
That hurts.
So you think about it and you just say, if I'm chasing greatness, I didn't quite get there in year one.
You're Burrow, she's Mahomes. I mean, do we have to say that?
I mean,
we might have to say that.
We can say that, but I just want to look at the camera. There's a lot of money in being Joe Burrow. I'm still broke.
This is football. Check it out. Kevin Clark's the best. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.